My garden was my pride and joy, a small oasis filled with blooming flowers, fragrant herbs, and an eclectic mix of quirky decorations. Among my favorite pieces was a charming little garden gnome, standing about 2 feet tall, with a cheeky grin, a pointed red hat, and a watering can in hand. I named him Gerald, and over the years he became almost a mascot for my backyard. So you can imagine my surprise and frustration when Karen, my notoriously difficult neighbor, decided Gerald belonged to her. It started innocently enough. One afternoon, I glanced over the fence and saw Gerald sitting on Karen's porch step. My jaw dropped. I marched over, pointed at the gnome, and said, "Hey, that's my garden gnome. Can I have him back?" Karen shrugged with a smirk. "I found him near the fence. I thought he wandered over." I knew better. Gerald hadn't budged in years. This was straight-up theft. I asked nicely again, but Karen dismissed me and kept the gnome like it was a trophy. For days, I debated my next move. Confronting Karen directly was useless. She thrived on petty power plays. So I decided on a little guerrilla gardening of my own. I ordered 100 garden gnomes online. Small, medium, big, classic, and quirky styles. Some were holding lanterns, others fishing poles, some with tiny animals, and a few even sporting sunglasses. I wanted my message to be loud and clear. That night, armed with gloves and a mischievous grin, I enlisted the help of my spouse and a couple of friends. We quietly, carefully, and strategically placed every one of those gnomes all over Karen's front yard and porch, on windowsills, hanging from trees, peeking out from flower pots, even sitting on her mailbox. By dawn, Karen's yard had transformed into what looked like a gnome convention. Hundreds of tiny and large ceramic figures stared out in every direction, creating a surreal and hilarious sight. The next morning, I watched from behind my curtains as Karen came outside, blinking in disbelief. She stopped dead in her tracks, scanning the sea of gnomes with a mixture of confusion, frustration, and maybe just a hint of awe. Neighbors who passed by stopped to take pictures, laughing and whispering about the sudden gnome invasion. Karen tried to remove them, but for every gnome she moved, another seemed to appear. Some of them hidden in tricky spots only noticed later. It became clear that the spectacle was here to stay. Finally, I walked over, holding Gerald triumphantly. "I think your yard has plenty of gnomes now," I said with a smirk. "How about we call it even?" Karen glared, but had to concede. She returned Gerald to me the next day. No words needed. From then on, my garden gnome stayed put, and Karen never laid claim to anything in my yard again. The 100 gnomes remained in her yard as a permanent, whimsical reminder of respecting boundaries. And maybe the most colorful, memorable neighbor prank our street has ever seen. Sometimes when words don't work, 100 little gnomes speaking loudly in unison will do the trick.